Welcome back, football fans. Welcome to another episode of the Six Yards podcast. We are back for the new season. We will be talking about the previews of the Big Six clubs in this edition and in this episode. I'm Manan, and I've got with me Supreet, who's an Arsenal fan, Sushant, who is a Manchester United fan, and Karthik, who is a Tottenham Hotspur fan. We'll be talking about all six clubs in general, their transfer season, their strategies, their preferred tactics, what can we look forward to next season, where their predicted finish, and we'll end the episode with a prediction for the top four, the relegation, and the European contenders for this season. We have a couple of mega news also coming in form of Messi's transfer window, but we'll not touch upon that in this episode. Let's get started. Welcome, Supreet, Sushant, and Karthik. How are you guys doing?
All good. Just waiting for the season to start.
I'm doing well, doing good as well. I'm just hoping our players, the signings that we made, kind of start turning up at the training ground, so we can at least see some action.
Right.
Talk about players turning up at training ground. I'm still waiting, and life, life's literally on tracks right now. Let's see.
Right. So let's start with a good place to start would be the Premier League champions. Let's start with Man City, if that's okay with you guys. Although we don't have a Man City fan on board in today's episode, we'll just go through a quick round of check with you guys and get your thoughts. I'd like to call upon Supreet first. Supreet, what do you think of Man City's transfer business so far? They've signed Grealish for £100 million, and with the possibility of another mega money buy from Tottenham in Harry Kane. What do you think about that transfer strategy this season?
It's been a bit underwhelming, to be honest. I mean, the only signing they've made is Grealish. I was hoping they'd probably sign someone up front, but yeah, I mean, obviously Harry Kane out for most of the summer with England. So I don't know who they're going to sign up front, given that they'll probably have to spend anywhere between 150, 160 million pounds. Not
Yeah.
sure if I mean, I'm pretty sure City have the money, but I'm not sure if they want to spend that kind of money, especially when Messi was literally available the exact day they signed Grealish, right?
Yeah.
So it's a bit I mean, they still need to sign someone up front. I'm not sure if Gabriel Jesus is someone that is going to lead the line for them for the whole season. Just wait. I mean, I think it's just going to be everyone waiting and watching to as to who they'll sign. But I think it's going to be Harry Kane, but I don't know if they'll be able to complete it in time.
Right. And what are your thoughts on Grealish? It's a huge money, of course, but is he worth that amount, or what are your general thoughts on Grealish to City?
Honestly, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Grealish. Yeah, I mean, he's a good player and all, but I think he's just English and a bit overrated. Uh, yeah, 100 million probably a bit too much. I think he's just a slightly better version of Zaha. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's the kind of prices that English players are demanding, and especially with Brexit and all of that kicking, all the homegrown rule, and I think it kind of makes sense for City to invest in a player like Grealish at this point in time. But that said, I think Pep also mentioned that he's expecting about 3 or 4 players to leave, including Bernardo Silva. That's one name that he mentioned. I'd love to
Yeah.
see a player like Bernardo Silva at Arsenal, though I'm pretty sure he'll not join us. I think he'll probably go for a club that is playing in the Champions League for sure. Um, yeah, so I mean, I think there's going to be some significant changes, at least if 3 or 4 players leave. I think Sterling is another name that's come out, and rumors of him not being very happy with how things are going on at City, with especially for him. Riyad Mahrez is another name that has been thrown around in the press. So still, I think there's still a lot of action left in the transfer window. I'm just I think things will start moving once the season starts.
Right.
Maybe some early injuries in the season, or let's say a couple of losses for a big team. I think that could just change how things are just sped up towards the end of the month.
Right. And final question to you, like you said, there are a few names being thrown around on the potential exits from City, but if you consider that none of them have actually left the club as of now, would you still say that Grealish was someone that they really needed, or was it an area that City needed to focus in terms of adding strength to it, or was it just a luxury buy at this stage?
I think he's a luxury. They've Grealish. I think Grealish is mostly a player who likes playing wide, comes towards attacking midfield a little bit, but rarely. And then they've got enough players of that caliber, like I mentioned, right, Sterling and Mahrez,
Yeah.
who at the moment are reportedly not very happy with the club. There's Phil Foden. They've got other players like De Bruyne and Silva and all of them in midfield. So I think it's a bit of a um, I think it's a bit of a luxury, but I think City wanted an attacking player, and I think Grealish is kind of suits their style of play, I guess. So yeah, I mean, overall not a bad transfer according to me. But anyways, I
Right.
don't think that's he's going to be the most important player in the coming season. If City are to challenge for the titles, it's going to
Mm.
be players like Ruben Diaz. They'll want De Bruyne, hitting top form for them. Phil
Right.
Foden having another good season. So all of these players, I think, will be more key to how City season actually pans out.
Right. Yeah, thanks for that, Supreet. Thanks for your thoughts on that. I'd like to invite Sushant now. Just a quick chat on City. Sushant, considering
Hi, Manas.
the transfer. Yeah, hi. So considering the transfer that City has made and considering their squad strength right now, right, the exits in form of Aguero and the incomings in the form of Grealish, how do you think City? How can we expect them to set up tactically? How do you think Pep will? Set them up to play against maybe the big six, maybe against the weaker teams? How can we expect them to play?
So I think if you ask this question to Pep also at the start of the season, I don't think he'd be able to answer this question. So
I think that's a
so in
valid
terms
point.
of setup, I think we've all been accustomed to Pep chopping and changing a lot, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
more than required, and sometimes to his own harm, right? Especially if
Mm.
we would see, especially in the Champions League, we've seen him
Yeah.
uh, try and make changes of different kinds as per what his understanding is, and then kind of not come off as expected,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, so I kind of want to just mention in terms of transfers as you talked about, right? So I'm slightly of a different opinion than Supreet here. I
Mhm.
think Jack Grealish is a potential world class player, right? I'll put him up there. Last season, till he was fit, I think he was in the top three for the players for the Premier League at that point, till unfortunately his injury kind of held him back. I mean,
Mhm.
if you just look at stats as well, right, in terms of chances created, be it open play or set pieces, in number of assists, he's always there on in the top five. I would say last season, right?
Yeah.
So I think he brings a lot to the team. He brings also the fact that he's only 25. I think what generally big clubs, I would love my club to do at least, would be to always ensure that there is a healthy level of balance in the squad, right? If we kind
Right.
of look at the age groups, Kevin and even Mahrez, right? Both of them are nearing that danger mark of the 30 and 30 plus, right?
Yeah.
While
Mm.
you could say that Kevin could move to a deeper role and kind of with his skills still be able to kind of I would say, I mean, lack for a better word, would say stay relevant in that squad, right?
Mm.
But in terms of maybe easing the load on Kevin, uh, I mean, Grealish can provide that kind of quality from midfield, where he basically and just like Mahrez also has that ability on the right hand side, just take the ball and drive through the middle, right? And
Right.
just cut players, cut teams across, and basically create chances, right? And
Mm.
so I think he will help. He will help the team a lot. He will add a new dimension. Something again. I'm sure there will be some exits. They'll probably look at if Bernardo is not planning on staying there, right? But I think
Mm.
it's shrewd business from Man City in terms of prepping not only for now but also the next 2-3 seasons. Because if you see their squad, right, they're always looking at one step ahead, right? Not only for this season. So
Hmm.
they saw the opportunity was there to sign Grealish. They had the money, and they've probably built enough of a squad well to kind of look one step ahead and splurge that extra money, right? They've never
Yeah.
spent this much money. They've always, whenever in the past, whenever such deals have kind of shown up at their doorstep, they've pushed back, be it Van Dijk, be it Maguire, be
Hmm.
it the centre back from Napoli, Koulibaly. So they've
Right.
always like balked at anything above 70 million, right? And this is the first time then they've gone ahead and said, okay, here we go, and they might even break this record by going ahead and
Yeah.
taking Harry Kane, right? Who I think is that one position that they actually need someone. But as you said, tactically, I think if Harry Kane doesn't show up, then you will see Pep rotate a lot in terms of who that striker is, and he'll probably switch back to what they did last season, which was basically ensuring that you can get as many people inside the box and basically
Hmm.
having a healthy spread of goals. Right, last season you had Gundogan who was a top scorer at 13, right, which is unheard of for a Premier League champion, completely unheard of.
Hmm.
So, so I think, and I think he's mentioned that Grealish can also get them goals and he can play up front. I'm sure that we will see some of that as well.
Yeah. It's an interesting take, really, because like you said, City have always, while they have kind of spent around a lot on a lot of different positions, but they've never spent this much amount on one player. So it really shows their intention and how highly they rate Grealish. But then again, in terms of his output, it's like hazardous numbers, right? So he's not never been a true goal scorer, but yet he's someone that with that extra spark in about him. So I think it makes sense. Like you said, if they don't sign a number nine, I think yeah, we can see them continuing with that false nine setup. Definitely. Thanks for that, Sushant. I'd like to ask a question to Karthik. Hi, Karthik.
Hey, Manan.
Karthik, obviously you would be,
Karthik sounds quite thrilled at the rumor
Of
of.
course, I just saw the scoreline and
what are your thoughts on your prized asset joining the Premier League champions?
I'm I'm thrilled, man. Couldn't I mean, there's no better feeling than that, I'm absolutely thrilled at the most. Ah,
No, but honestly, it's a potentially, I would say, a paradigm shifting move, even for you, even for Spurs, because if you invest smartly, there's no reason why you can't, move on from Harry Kane, isn't it? So we've seen Chelsea doing it, yeah,
mhm.
with Hazard money signing a bunch of quality players and then going on ahead to win the Champions League. So there's no reason why you can't do the same. What are your thoughts on that? Can you target something like this? So you already signed a very good centre back in Romero, but I think I'll probably park that question for now because we are in the City section. So
Yeah.
how do you think Harry Kane? Obviously, he's a world class player, no doubt about that. But how does he improve City? Because City are at such an elevated level already. So how
Mhm.
how do you think Harry Kane helps them improve?
See, honestly, I thought a majority of City's goals came from the midfield, be it from De Bruyne or Sterling. It's not a proper they haven't had opportunities where they were able to convert chances where a proper poacher would. Okay,
Hmm.
maybe because of Jesus' form or Aguero's injuries, whatever. So I
Hmm.
think Kane coming in would give them the guaranteed 30 plus goals and assists a season. That's a given. But I think what I'm tempted is the fact that they've got De Bruyne who plays in some wonderful balls,
Hmm.
and I think the conversion, right? Chance conversion would probably improve. Number one, with
Right.
Grealish coming in, and uh, if you look at Kane's stats, he doesn't miss, and he started. I mean, at least from ever since Mourinho came in, he hasn't been taking shots left, right, and center. He's just been very choosy in the shots that he takes, and then he doesn't miss them. So
Hmm.
in that sense, I think. Anyway, see, no matter doesn't matter how you set the team up. I think Pep's system has thrived under a false nine, seldomly at City. All right, I think they were more um, creative in the midfield, but then
Mhm.
they are lacking a proper out and right finisher, and it's just that Kane would probably help them score more than 100 goals. I mean, 100 goals wouldn't even be a difficult task for them if he comes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then again, I am actually resigned to the fact that Kane will leave. Okay. Now, if you look at the rumor mill, there's no striker that's linked with City apart from Kane. Okay.
Hmm.
And I really do not think that Pep will take a gamble because this season is going to be make it or break it, especially after spending so much money.
Yeah.
He will have the pressure to deliver the Champions League, and he's not. And even Bergstenian, they'll not risk it. They'll not risk without going in without a proper striker.
Hmm.
So my best bet is that Kane to City is as good as done. Spurs are just trying to sign some players without being blackmailed into getting jacked up for a high price, and
Hmm.
probably by the end of the transfer window, we'll see Kane as a City player.
Right. And what would you think? So if let's say Kane joins, and all the transfers that City have made, in your thoughts, what would be the say, assuming Pep sticks to the tried and tested system of a 4-3-3, what would you think the front three would look like for City, given their embarrassment of riches in terms of talent?
Um, See, if things stand okay, I you really cannot predict Pep. Okay, if I say he's going to go with a system, the second game it's going to be a completely. I mean, they've got enough options to pull in a different starting 11 week in week out. So, but
Mm.
the ideal uh, starting 11 for me would be Kane up front with Grealish playing on the left and Mahrez on the right,
Yeah.
and Rodri and De Bruyne sitting, Rodri, De Bruyne, and Gundogan sitting behind them. Probably,
Mm.
De Bruyne a little advanced, possibly just be playing in behind the Kane,
Yeah.
and Rodri and Gundogan sitting deep, and Gundogan playing as a box to box while
Mm.
Rodri shields the back four.
Right.
But then again, they've got Zinchenko and as well as Walker who would like to move forward. So I wouldn't be surprised if Gundogan plays a little deeper role as well,
Right.
trying to move the ball from defense to the midfield.
Right.
But then
And
again, I
mm.
one another aspect, as to why Harry Kane would be a good fit for them. I think they've got some wonderful crosses in the team,
Mm.
and there's no better striker who can head the ball better than Kane, and that would be another threat going forward. So
Right.
it makes more sense. I mean, for me, it makes more sense to sign Kane before Grealish because Grealish is a luxury, Kane is a necessity. As simple as that.
Right, right, right. And let's say, given the status of their window right now, right? So, with the squad that they have now, right here, right now, do you think City can retain the title? Where do you think that they will finish this season, based on the squad that they have? I mean, not considering that they will sign or Kane or they may sign Kane.
Irrespective, I expect them to retain the title, but it's not going to be as easy as it was last time. I'm not sure if Liverpool would be up for the task, but Chelsea are going to
Hmm.
be a genuine title contender, especially if they sign Lukaku,
Right.
and they should be as well. So it's going to be close, but I think it's going to be between City and Chelsea, as much as I hate to admit, with
Right.
United fighting for a third spot.
Right. So, in your view, City will retain the title, yeah?
They should, yeah.
Right.
They'll do it much more comfortably if they sign a quality striker, if not Kane.
Sure. Supreet, what are your thoughts on that? Where do you think City will finish given the squad that they have right now?
I think same. I think they'll be. I think they're going to be title contenders, closely followed by Chelsea or United, according to me.
So you predict them to retain the title, is it?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And Sushant, how about you?
I think if City get Kane, then the title. But if they don't, then I think they'll still win the title.
Fair enough. So I think I agree with all of you. I think City I have a formidable squad. I think they have a deep enough squad to last over a season. They may not be the best at knockout games, but they are certainly the real deal when it comes to a marathon. So I think they should retain the title as well, in my view. Yeah. So moving on to the next team, we'll start with. So we'll move on to the second place team of last season. So we'll go with Manchester United. They have had a flurry of signings. Rather, to be fair to them, not flurry. They have signed two world class players. One potentially world class, one already world class. So they've added some real quality to their squad. I'll obviously start with Sushant. Sushant, what are your thoughts on Jadon Sancho and Rafa Varane joining your team?
So first of all, I'm finally happy that the I would say the drama around signing Sancho has ended this season at least. I think it's been on for around 18 months, I would say.
Yeah.
And if you want to even drag it back, then it would be since he left City because we had tried to sign him even then,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but had failed. So yeah, I'm really happy with the two signings. I'm actually more happy about the fact that we got them done early. Unfortunately, due to other circumstances, they couldn't make it into the
Mm.
training ground earlier. But at least in terms of getting deals done, both of them were done with in a good space of time without wasting unnecessary time trying to make low ball bids and trying to wait
Yeah.
for them to see and trying to play some kind of Chinese whispers. So
Mm.
they got there and got those deals done. So I'm really happy, but still concerned with some specific gaps in the team. I still think we don't have a really good midfield pair to speak of.
Right.
I mean, we have Bruno, we have Pogba there. So there's a lot of individual quality available there, a lot of good pieces, but there's always that one piece missing in midfield in terms of joining all of them together. So in this case, it would be a defensive midfielder, preferably
Mm.
uh, someone who's at least good at winning the ball back and shielding the defense. Because I think even
Right.
with the signing of Varane, I still think our defense will be exposed at times from midfield, and I think even though we might, there have been rumors that United will start the season in a 4-3-3. I think eventually we will fall back down to that midfield pivot of McFred and playing a 4-2-3-1 with Pogba playing somewhere on the left, Bruno in his proprietary number 10 role, and someone whoever is fit will be on the right. I'm assuming that's Sancho, and then Cavani
Right.
or Martial at up front. So,
Mm.
but yeah, but I still personally think we are too shining short of really challenging Man City, and
Right.
as our recent rumors have confirmed, Lukaku is signing for Chelsea. So I think City and Chelsea are the top front runners right now for me. With United needing at least two signings to for me to see them be of any kind of challenge to those two across a season.
Right. But so I think now finally, with like you correctly mentioned, the Sancho saga getting over, get United getting the deal over the line, and obviously no one expected Rafael Varane to join at least this season. But that is something of a coup that United have pulled off. I think he's a very good partner for Harry Maguire in that heart of United defense. So, but do you think Ole has to deliver a trophy this season? So he's been backed with a lot of signings, a lot of first choice signings as well. So do you think now this is the season that it's kind of make or break for Ole? And what would your expectations be from Manchester United and Solskjaer?
So yeah, so I certainly think that Ole really needs to deliver a trophy this season. I don't think that would primarily be the Premier League, but my personal opinion about cup trophies have always been that if you have a good, I would say, a starting 11 and a set of ethics and team morale around it, you can
Mhm.
always, and you need a bit of luck, of course, you can always
Yeah.
sneak in a cup or two, right?
Mm.
Uh, and I honestly think that this season, Ole needs to ensure that there is one trophy, sorry, to celebrate at the end of the season, be it a
Right.
FA Cup, be it I hope it's in the European trophy. We're challenging for the Champions League, so be it a Champions League,
Right.
be it an FA Cup or be it a Carling Cup, right? He needs to deliver one trophy at least this season. Just not necessarily for like, so for me personally, progress wouldn't be if we won a FA Cup or a Carling Cup, but just to kind of um, have some display out there of progress, right? So there has certainly been
Right.
progress under Ole in the last 2 seasons in terms of
Definitely.
not only in terms of the points total, but more in terms of the personnel and how the club conducts themselves and how we play on the field itself, right? So there have been a lot of changes, a lot of progress made,
Yeah.
but now is a stage in that whole progress where you need to start winning stuff, so that the players can also start believing like there's something good that's happening, right?
Right.
So, yeah. So I certainly think Ole needs to deliver a trophy. I don't think it will be the Premier League. I'm not expecting him to. In terms of expectations in the league, I mean, I would be happy if we crossed 85 points this season, right?
Hmm.
Um, I don't think so. That will again be enough to win the title.
Right.
But yeah, if we're in the race till let's say March, April, I'd be happy. I mean, that would be a successful season, at least in the league. The cups, they're a whole ball game of. I think half of it is a lottery. It depends on who you face at what stage, uh,
Right.
what injuries, and so on and so forth, right? So, but yeah, a trophy is a must.
Right. But from looking from a squad point of view, obviously you have added some two first teamers already, so it does give a sense that you have a really good squad depth now as well. So how far do you think this squad, as things stand right here right now, how far do you think this squad can go in, say, the Champions League? Like you said, at the end of the day you do need some luck, but assuming all the factors are not counted for, how far do you think this team should go in the Champions League?
So I expect this squad has enough quality to kind of at least reach the quarterfinals, right?
Hmm.
That would I would take us to the top eight, right? So I think we have the squad quality to kind of reach the top eight in Europe. Um,
Right.
and I mean, depending on who we face and the fixtures around it, I think I mean it would really depend on how Varane and Sancho fit in, right? But if they
Hmm.
fit in well immediately, then I think a top four. I mean, the semi-finals is also something that this squad can achieve.
Right. I think that's a good expectation, because I do think that United are kind of dark horses for both the Champions League and Premier League. So I think if the lesser the expectations from outside, influences, I would say, the media and the fans, I think they'll thrive in that.
So I
That's
think
that's
Premier
yeah.
League, Premier League, I wouldn't agree with the dark horses primarily because I don't think we have this. We still have the squad, and maybe not necessarily also in terms of squad depth, right? I don't think so. There's enough squad depth in certain positions that can make or
Hmm.
break a season for you, right?
Hmm.
So I think even in this season, we will face issues in the league against teams in the low block
Right.
who play in a low block primarily because we still don't have a good defensive midfield player in a pivot who can really take that ball and progress it forward so that Bruno doesn't have to fall, have to come back to the center circle, right, every game.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that progression to the final third, from the middle third to the final third, is something that still needs a lot of work on. I mean, we've made some good additions in the backroom staff, and we saw in terms of a set piece coach. So I'm hoping we see improvement in our set piece defending, and of course we've added a world class centre back there as well. So that should help matters. But again, there are
Right.
certain aspects that I'm really looking out for. I hope we get. I mean, United is still is still open in the transfer market. We're letting go of certain players. So I'm assuming if we let go of one or two more players, and we can either get again, I'm not really satisfied with any of the midfield links that have made except Declan Rice, but that
Hmm.
is someone that your club Chelsea also needs.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, if we can Trippier as well, right? I mean, I still have question marks over Van Bissaka's on-ball ability. He's
Hmm.
a great one v one defender, but I think other than that, even in the defensive aspects, there's a lot of coaching that he needs to be done, and which is fine
Hmm.
because he's still young. It's not like he's 27 and he's in his peak. He's supposed to be in his peak. He's still young enough to learn. But I
Right.
think if we get a Trippier there, that also helps our right wing comparatively because in an attacking sense, if you remember the Villarreal game last season,
Hmm. Hmm.
it was. I mean, I've never seen more disrespect being shown to a right back. But I think, I mean, I would do that if I was in their team. They let the whole right wing open for him to run onto, because they knew that he couldn't really harm them on the.
Right.
They were ready to risk giving up that
Yeah.
whole space because they knew he couldn't harm them. So I mean, that shouldn't really be happening next season, or we'll still struggle in specific games in the league, right? And when you struggle in those games, in the league, it matters. In the Champions League, it doesn't, because in the Champions League, teams are also fighting. It's a knockout game, right? Someone has to win at the end of the day. In the league, a lower league level team will accept a draw. He'll take that 1 point over maybe losing that 1 point itself, right?
Right.
So in the league, it's still harder for a dark horse to win the league unless you go through a mad season like Leicester. But with United's team, I think we have enough to sneak in a cup if we want, right? As you said, dark horses.
Yeah. I think that's a fair assessment, to be honest. Yeah. I think Supreet had a question for you, Sushant. So go ahead, Supreet.
Yeah, I mean, my question was, I think, yeah, I mean, United did sign Cavani, but up front, do you think, how Chelsea have Lukaku at the moment, and City are probably going to sign Harry Kane. United still lack that one player who they can rely on for like 20, 25 goals a season. I mean, there's Rashford, there's Martial, but none of them have actually convinced that they can score all the goals that United need. Do you think the striker is a position that United should have probably covered during the transfer window?
So yeah, so that is a really interesting question there, Supreet. So what I personally feel is that United, I mean, I'll first take up what the understanding at the club from what I can see has happened, right? What we've basically gone ahead and done is that United has, I mean, with the behavior of before the summer window, have basically plonked their feet, saying that we are going to try and sign Haaland next year, right? Because that's when
Yeah.
his release clause kicks in of
Hmm.
around 70 million, right? They've also went ahead and decided that they are not going to try and waste time this season trying to sign Harry Kane. They don't want to get into that battle. They were pretty sure about the fact that they wanted Sancho, which was for an approximately, and I think they've got him for the amount that they budgeted for, which was 80-90 million. So they probably decided that they didn't have the budget to kind of go and try for a Harry Kane or even for a Haaland this season, right? Which would
Hmm.
mean 150 million minimum for either of them, right?
Yeah.
130, 150. So what they've gone ahead and done is they took re-signed Cavani for 1 year. Ole, from what I've read, Ole did a lot to try and convince him for that. So basically, to buy them one more year's time, right? What helps there is that it gives Greenwood a chance to develop further, and then for us to see, okay, I mean, what kind of player is he building into, and it also gives us a chance to look into the market, see Haaland available. I think if, for example, Chelsea do complete that, I mean, they are close to completing the signing of Lukaku. City complete that signing of Harry Kane, and assuming United still finish in the top four, which I'm expecting us to do. So I personally, in the Premier League, I don't see any other challenger for Haaland next year, right? I mean, he's literally run
Yeah.
out of clubs in the Premier League at least.
Hmm.
La Liga, I'm again, Barcelona is not. I mean, I don't think so. They're in any health to sign any kind of money required for Haaland. Real Madrid might be too busy with Mbappe. PSG would have Messi, so I'm not sure they would be looking for Haaland, and I'm not sure Haaland would personally want to go there. And I mean, that leaves Bayern Munich, right? So I think United have probably decided that next year is the year we sign a striker, and there were more pressing matters. I would say the right wing was it was like a desert in our
Hmm.
in our club, right? There was no right wing.
Yeah.
So United felt that building up that area of the squad and then waiting one more season to decide on the striker role was, I think, more beneficial for us. Right? And I personally think that while we may not, on paper at least, have a player who can score 20-25 goals as from a striker's role, but I think among the players, among Rashford, among the players you mentioned, Rashford, Martial, then there's Mason Greenwood, Sancho's now joined. Cavani's joined. Cavani's there, and then Bruno. Right. I think there are at least 80 to 90 goals among them, among these 5-6 players. Right, and you don't necessarily need them to any one of them to hit 20 goals to reach that 90 figure mark. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there are enough goals in the squad. Last year, my issue primarily was that we weren't creating enough. So I'm personally happy with Sancho, and I think we can. I mean, the striker signing next year would be needed. I mean, next year it is a requirement.
Okay, thanks for that, Supreet and Sushant. Uh, Karthik, do you have any questions for Sushant on Manchester United season upcoming?
No questions as such, but one thing I'm actually looking forward to from the United games is how drastically Maguire's performances are going to improve. I think actually might actually start seeing the better or the best of him with Varane next to him, and I'm really really intrigued. And also on the striker situation, I think uh, United would have played smart. Okay, they either had to go for Sancho or sign a striker, and in the current market, there are not many options. Obviously, I don't think they were looking at bringing back Lukaku, number one, and although they had interest for Kane, honestly, I mean, he would have preferred to move to City if given an opportunity. So, and in order to get a proven goal scoring forward, it would have been really really difficult and pretty expensive. And correct me if I'm not wrong. I think United probably reported some sort of loss last year, and may not probably be fully, up with the fact that they would have to invest upwards of 100 million to bring in a quality striker. Given the fact that they also have, problems on the right wing, as Shishant pointed out. So I think with the fans coming back and the revenues probably starting to be more streamlined now and get back to the normalcy, it would make sense that they actually, because Cavani is decent and he's proved that. My only
Yeah.
beef with him is, will he last 90 minutes week in week out? I'm not really sure. But then if they can squeeze in about, let's say, 60 to 70 minutes per every game with and touch wood that Anthony Martial can come in and fill the gap at least. Or I would rather start Greenwood up front than Martial, to be very honest. I think they can probably look at selling him and then see if they can recoup some of the funds. But yeah, I think they played smart, and the English tax did hit them in terms of Sancho and his huge fee. But then I think that's still a good investment and a good place to start building the squad for the future.
Right. I think that's a very valid point, Karthik, that you make. I think we all forgot about Martial, and while he still had an underwhelming season last time around, I think I wouldn't go so far as to say he's a potentially world class player, but is clearly talented. So I think it's a make or break season for him as well. I'll slightly disagree when you say they should probably go for Greenwood over Martial. But yeah, let's see. It's interesting to see what Solskjaer thinks, because clearly, as Sushant also said, that it's kind of a make or break season for him, and he has to deliver a trophy for all the investment that has gone in from United. So that was the section on United. Thank you, Sushant, Supreet, and Karthik. We'll move on to the next team for the preview. We'll continue our journey now from Manchester side to London. So let's start with Arsenal. We'll go alphabetically, not in terms of club size. So welcome, Supreet. We'll start with you. Obviously, you being the die-hard Arsenal fan. In terms of transfer business, you've got I believe 3 signings already this season.
Yep.
The left back in Nuno Mendes, the midfielder in Lokonga, and obviously the biggest one of them being the centre back Ben White from Brighton. So, how would you rate the overall transfer activity from Arsenal, and whether you address the key positions that really propel you or propel Arsenal to realistically a top 4 fight?
Yeah, with the new signings, I'm pretty confident we can finish in the top 10 now. I mean, we had to strengthen a lot of positions which we didn't. One was up front, one was attacking midfield.
Mm.
Um, We had a bucket load of centre backs last year. We kind of got rid of them now. Socrates, David Luiz over the course of the season.
Yeah.
Mavropanos and Saliba have gone out on loan. It still seems like we have a lot of centre backs after signing Ben White. We have White, we have Holding, we have Chambers, Murray, Gabriel. Yeah, that's 5 centre backs. We've got 3
Yeah.
left backs: Tierney, Tavares, Kolasinac. We've got 3 right backs: Bellerin. Maitland Niles is technically a right back. Cedric, and yet we can't defend. Right? I'm just being sarcastic. We concede so many sloppy goals.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Ben White. I think we've bought him as a more permanent fixture at the back. Rob Holding has been good. I think he played about 25 games. I think he started 25 games last season, and I think he was quite composed. But at the end of the day, I think he's just an average centre back, more in the mold of, say, someone like a Michael Keane at Everton, or or someone like Tarkowski at Burnley, right?
Yeah.
I think is somewhere in the same league as them. I don't think. If you want to actually finish in the top, I would say 7, if not top 4, then we need better defenders, and I think Ben White is an upgrade to Rob Holding. I think
True.
along with Gabriel, I think he'll form a good enough central defensive unit, and just end the nightmares that I have endured after years of Mustafi and whatnot. But yeah, I think Tierney is going to be our starting left back. Tavares, I think he's been bought in uh, as a as a substitute left back. Obviously, I think Kolasinac is on his way out. I think we're close to agreeing terms with Fenerbahce. Ozil needs his bodyguard back. And I have a feeling Bellerin will move out before the transfer window closes. We are still stuck with Cedric because we can't really move him out. Not a lot of clubs want him, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we could probably make Callum Chambers our right back if we don't sign anyone before the transfer window ends.
Right.
In midfield, I think we tried to push Xhaka out of the club. He had a pretty solid Euro 2020, and I don't think he's a bad player. Yes, he's had his moments. He's had his crazy moments at the club, but overall, I
Right.
think he brings a lot of solidity. He plays 40, 45 games every season. He rarely gets injured. He brings a lot of at least he has a presence in midfield. But I'm not sure
Right.
if Xhaka is a player uh, who could inspire us to finishing in the top 4.
Right.
Partey has been injured for a long time, for long periods of time since he's come. He's again injured. I think he's out for 4 weeks after he got an
Yeah.
injury in the friendly game against Chelsea. We've signed Lokonga from Anderlecht. I think he's going to take some time to bed in, and till then we'll just have to play around with the likes of El Neni, in the center of midfield. Uh, on the positive side, I'm happy that we've secured long-term contracts for Smith Rowe and Saka. Smith Rowe has obviously got the number 10.
Yeah.
I'd really like to see, however, an attacking midfield, an attacking midfielder. And my kind of hope is that we ensure that Odegaard or Madison, one of them is signed. I have a feeling we are going to push for Odegaard because Real Madrid need to lighten their wage bill. I'm not sure if Odegaard is someone we're looking for another season's loan, or whether we'll be able to sign him on a permanent transfer.
Right.
Up front, Aubameyang, I don't think he's. I mean, we gave him a 3-year contract at the back of a 25 goal season. Last season, he just seemed like a shadow of a player that he was. So it's a bit disappointing that we haven't actually secured a striker. There are rumors of Tammy Abraham going around with Chelsea signing Lukaku now. Looks like Lautaro Martinez, if I pronounced it right, is on the way to Tottenham of all clubs. So at the moment, I think we either promote Martinelli into a much more prominent role up front, or we are stuck with another season of Aubameyang or Lacazette
Right.
having to produce the goods for us. So overall, I mean, it's been a very okayish window. If I think it would be a much better window if we sign someone in a more attacking mold, someone who can score goals.
Hmm.
And there's still about 20 days for that, so hoping for the best.
Right. And in terms of the signings, how would you think that will help the team in terms of, say, tactically? How do you think Arteta will set up into this going into the season? Obviously, Arsenal, like many other big six clubs, don't have a very easy start to the season. So, how do you think Arteta is going to, how is he going to set up the team? And B, generally, how is he going to fare this season? Because it's again a massive season for him with back-to-back eighth finishes. I think he has to do much more in terms of delivering something to the club this season, right? So, what do you think? How do you think Arteta will fare in general?
I think so. I mean, we don't have any European football, so it's just 38 league games and whatever comes up in the FA Cup and League Cup.
Yeah,
But I mean, any other time I would have probably said anything less than top four is probably a disappointing season. But
yeah,
um, I mean, I saw the games against Chelsea and Tottenham didn't really inspire me with a lot of confidence. I think we kind of played our best teams, and we've lost both of them. So I'm not particularly confident. I think this in the starting, I think we play Chelsea at home and City away within the first 3 or 4 weeks. Um, I'm not at all confident of winning either, or even getting a point each of those games. If we do, I'll be really happy. But I think again, it's going to be a season where we just take one game at a time and see where that lands up. Starting with Brentford. If you ask my prediction, I'm just going to say maybe somewhere in this sixth or seventh places where I see Arsenal finishing up.
right. And any domestic cups that you see, Arsenal challenging for. Obviously, you have been the kings of the FA Cup after all. So, do you think that is something Arteta can target this season? Maybe not to mock you, of course, but that could be a potential route into getting into the European
Yeah, I mean, I would love
competitions.
another cup run. I would love another cup run. Uh, but yeah, I think the focus should be on at least getting onto the as high in the Premier League as possible, and at least in the top five, according to me, because I have a feeling City are going to go for it in the Champions League, and it just feels like we need to finish in the top 4 or 5 to have a shot at the Champions League.
Right. And did you see Arteta lasting the season? Did
Surprisingly,
you?
yes. I think he'll last the season. Uh, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the season, I think we're going to have to take some sort of decision if he doesn't end up with a trophy or doesn't finish in the top four.
Right. I think it's an interesting take. I think Arsenal will do, in this is just my view, I think they will do much better than last season. But like you said, in terms of the firepower that the other teams are already either getting linked to or have already signed, I think it's looking very bleak in terms of um, finishing in the top four. I think Sushant has a question for you, Supreet. Go ahead, Sushant.
Supreet, just curious here. I mean, you mentioned that Arteta's position would be in question if depending if he doesn't finish on the top four. But do you think with the quality he has available in the squad right now, I mean, as currently assuming the strikers are misfiring as they are, do you think you have enough quality to finish in the top four along with what's available? I mean, with what you are facing
No,
across the board?
no, we don't. We
Cool.
don't have quality to finish in the top six, I think.
No, I think top six. I would probably argue you probably could.
I
I mean,
think
it would
Leicester have
require.
better strikers than us, to be honest. At
Yeah.
least, yeah, I mean, but it's going to be a difficult season. Um,
True.
we need players like Smith Rowe and Saka to, and maybe even Pepe to score a lot of goals. If we cannot get Aubameyang and or Lacazette to fire it for us. I'm hoping Martinelli comes good this season. But apart from that, we don't have too many options up front. I mean, Nketiah is on his way out. He was never anyways going to be the next Henry or something. Joe Willock probably go on to Newcastle. Yeah,
Yes.
and up front we've had problems the last season, so I'm not too. We haven't changed much up front, so I'm not too hopeful.
I just wanted to add that I think just post the match Arsenal's game, Arteta has probably mentioned that with Joe, why Willock was missing, he said that he will have to explain the results when he can. So I think that deal is probably across the line.
Yeah.
Thanks, Supreet.
Right. Thanks, Sushant, for that. And yeah, Karthik, do you have any comments on your arch rivals? What do you think, Arsenal? Will they finish in the top four, top six? How about the signings? Any general comments, questions?
There's only going to be one London team finishing in the top four, and it's not Arsenal and Tottenham. So let's
Yeah, I
rule that
think
out.
West Ham will need to do a little better this season, isn't it?
I'm more worried about Aston Villa, to be very honest. I mean, I think they have a cracker of a team, and I honestly think they'll be challenging both Arsenal and Spurs this season.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. Leicester are also obviously making waves in terms of signings. They've had some incredible incomings this season.
Patson
Obviously, it's
Daka,
it's
remember the name, man.
yes, of course.
What-
We have Daka, we have Sumare. But obviously, they'll be hit by a massive loss of Wesley Fofana, of course.
Yeah.
So that's going to be an incredible miss. Yeah, one question for Supreet. Will we see a St. Tottenham stay again this season or no?
What do you mean again? I haven't seen it, and I forgot it all long. If Harry Kane leaves Tottenham, I think there is a possibility. If not, I don't think so. Tottenham have a better squad at the moment than us.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. Thank you so much, Supreet, Sushant, Karthik. We'll move on to the next London team, next North London team, Tottenham. Hi KV, or should I say Karthik?
Ah,
Yeah.
shit. Here we go again.
Karthik, starting with your transfer business, there have been some, swap deals, some incomings, some outgoings. What are your general thoughts? You've already signed one of the best centre backs, young centre backs around in Christian Romero. You've signed Brian Gill, who seems to be a decent prospect, with obviously Lamela going the other way.
Yeah.
How do you think, in terms of the transfer activity? Obviously, you are still not done because there are links coming up for Lautaro Martinez, and obviously then there's the whole Harry Kane saga. So you're clearly not done as a club in the transfer market. But up until now, in terms of the activity, how do you think the club is fared? Generally speaking.
So I would actually like to start with the whole managerial hunt and the whole circus and the merry-go-round that
Ah, of
happened.
course. How can I miss that? Yes, let's start with that.
So, uh, okay, it was very clear that we were going to look at a big name to replace Mourinho.
Yeah.
But I think so. It all went down with three candidates, and at a point where Eric Ten Hag was probably touted as the man to take over. But
Hmm.
then apparently Spurs were not impressed with him, and he was ruled out. And then obviously the Conte deal got us all excited,
Yeah.
but it hardly lasted hours because the moment he got to know Levy's plans, he's that type of a guy. If you don't back him, he's gonna walk out. So as simple as that.
Yeah.
So although we were sort of excited, it was never realistic, and it was never going to
Hmm.
work out. Then came in Fabio Paratici. Obviously, the link made the possibility of Conte coming in even uh, reasonably well to believe. But
Hmm.
because they've worked with each other in the past and they've been a good fit. But then again, he was not able to convince, and then we eventually Paratici came in as a managing director for footballing activities, and. Uh, and then the real fun started with Paulo Fonseca, and I think Paulo Fonseca probably would have become the manager had it not been for Gattuso leaving Fiorentina.
Yeah.
I think the night he decided to leave Fiorentina is when you know Tottenham started reaching out to him. But then again, I think that's the power of social media that is today. I think Spurs fans were extremely vocal in terms of having not having Gattuso at the club, given his series of misogynistic tweets. That didn't really go down with the club and the values.
Yeah.
So that was immediately ruled out. But then, yeah, I think for a fact, I know that Daniel Levy likes to do business in the back end without having sort of any glaring media attention. But then I think what happened probably irked him to a fact,
Mm.
and I think it was then up to Paratici, because Levy has promised that he's going to step away from all the footballing, given all the disasters that have happened in the past,
Yeah.
and we are to believe that it was Paratici's choice to get Nuno,
Mm.
uh, because he wasn't even in the initial screening list when Spurs were looking out for the managers. So
Right.
it was solely Paratici's call. He had to convince Daniel Levy to sort of bring him aboard.
Mm.
I wasn't really pleased after being linked with Poch coming back, and then having the possibility of Conte leading us. Yeah, it was really underwhelming to see Nuno being announced as a manager, because I've seen his teams play in the form of both, in terms of how Wolves played, but
Mm-hmm.
then things went south uh, last season, and
Yeah.
um, but then again, I really don't want to comment, and I would like to, because from what I've seen, he's a good coach.
Mm.
And the way Spurs want to operate going forward is have a coach and let Paratici manage all the business end with the transfers and all. So
Mm.
it's a good setup, and I wouldn't think there would be a better fit than Nuno in terms of coaching the players on the team. But
Right.
again, that what that does is put the players, like star players like Kane, Son, at the risk of leaving. Okay, Son decided to sign a new contract, and then all happy over there. But then that's still a risk in terms of attracting the players.
Right.
Will they really want to come and play for Nuno?
Mm.
You know, there was a time when Paulo Dybala was convinced that he would want to come and play under Mauricio Pochettino. So
Right.
that was a sort of pedigree that he made for himself. But I don't see a reason why Nuno cannot. But then again, it's underwhelming, to be very honest, and there's no hiding that fact.
Right. And obviously, there's the whole, fact about, dealing with Levy. So
Mhm.
if you sign a long-term contract as a player, and if you have 3 years down the line, let's say if you have a dream club coming for you and you want to move and you have to got to deal with the likes of Levy, who are already, quite penny pinching and built up a reputation for playing hardball. So
Mhm.
that also probably will play into the minds of potential
Sure, for sure.
signings.
And
Yeah.
I was pretty damn sure. Okay, after the whole fiasco, I was pretty damn sure that we are not going to sign players on a long contract.
Hmm.
And just 2 days later, Christian Romero signs a 6-year deal. I was like, wow, okay. So you never know. So you really
Hmm.
cannot. So it all depends on the terms of the contract.
Yeah.
But then again, so yeah, moving on from the managerial target, that's done and dusted. We have Nuno. I can only just get behind him and hope that you know. Obviously, he needs investment. There's absolutely no way that this team can be coached, the current set of team,
Hmm.
especially with the defenders. So, if Mourinho cannot do it, I don't think there's any better coach to coach the players, not manage them, but just coach them.
Hmm.
Um, Coming to the players, obviously, a complete revamp of the defense was slash is needed. 50% of it is done, yes. Obviously, thanks to Chelsea. I wouldn't completely blame Chelsea, but then again, blame our situation for not
Yeah.
having to sign Jules Koundé. I think that was the first deal that sort of appeared, wherein we agreed
Right.
a fee with Sevilla,
Hmm.
and that didn't work out. The player clearly wanted to wait out for Real Madrid,
Hmm.
but then they didn't come. But again, he wasn't really convinced, and why should he? He's guaranteed Champions League football there, and why would he come down to play
Yeah.
Conference League football? But then I think that is where something brewed, and Paratici managed to strike a deal with Sevilla for a swap deal with Eric Lamela for Ryan Hill. No one. Let's be honest, none of us knew who he was till the day it was announced.
Right.
And again, I'm not really too convinced. Yeah, we had to ship Lamela. It's sad to see because he's a warrior. I like him. I like him because he's got that Argentinian mentality of playing games. He's rusty and he irritates the players,
Right.
especially the rival teams. And I'm sure you know more about it.
Of course.
But then I'm happy that we managed to ship Lamela, because that's moving one deadwood, because he's been too injury prone, and I think he's going to do well in Sevilla. But then again, it's still it's a very big gamble that Spurs have taken. For signing he's a young 21-year-old kid for 20-year-old kid for 21 million plus whatever Lamela's was valued at. So upwards of 30 million at least. So I wasn't really convinced because, yeah, all we did was look at a couple of videos and then read about how good he was, and apparently he's probably the third or fourth best prospect to come out of Spain at this moment. And again, if it's something that Paratici believes in, if he's got a good future, then yeah, let's see. But from the little that I've seen him play in the Olympics, I naturally, ever since his transfer, he was into the whole mold. I started watching him. I liked how he was playing, although he didn't
Right.
play much. But then, which is a good thing for us. Maybe it'll be easy for him to come back to training and recuperate.
Yeah.
But yeah, from what I've seen, he's a decent player, loads of potential, and I think he's that old school tricky winger, right? Who's not afraid of taking on players. So I think that is one issue that I've had with wingers at Spurs, including Steven Bergwijn, who we recently signed. He was lighting up the Dutch league, but then adapting to Premier League was a whole different story, and he was hardly taking on players. So I have a problem when wingers do not take on players. What's the rule? I mean, if you see Sonny last season, that's
Right.
sort of still, he wasn't taking on players as he used to earlier. So I hope it's a different story with this guy. He's young. I I just hope that the whole price tag wouldn't be of a burden on him, and he just goes on to play how he is, what he's known for. Uh, so yeah, physicality is again an issue with him. He's lean, he's dimly built. So
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how he would adapt. But then again, it's a gamble, and I just hope that it works out for us. But then again, that wasn't a priority signing. To be very honest, I'm not really sure why that was struck first. Because maybe they see it as a deal that they really don't want to miss out on. But it wasn't a priority buy, number one.
Yeah. I think it's
Then
a.
there was, yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, so next there was the whole decision to let Paulo Gazzaniga leave, because he was on loan at Eibar last time around, Elche last time around, and then he decided to move to Fulham after he became a free agent. And obviously with Joe Hart, although he's a homegrown, and Spurs have an issue with the homegrown quota, so Joe Hart was sold for a profit of 1 million. I really don't know how Paratici managed to do that after signing him for a free. But then that's wages out, and then we signed a real promising goalkeeper who I think could be well on way to replace Hugo Lloris next season if he decides to leave. So Colini from Atalanta. So
Yeah.
seen a bit of him. Seems to be a very good shot stopper in a one-on-one situations. Passes the ball or much better than Lloris, to be honest. And yeah, not a big name signing, but then yeah, I'm really happy to see him as a backup and let him sort of get into the whole mold of living in England again, because he's had experiences at Aston Villa and United. So settling in shouldn't be an issue. But then yeah, he's one for the future and the cup games.
Right.
The next, obviously, was the protracted transfer saga of Christian Romero. So Spurs apparently were haggling with price here and there, obviously. But then, from what we understand, Atalanta were not willing to let him go.
Mm.
But once they decided, yeah, I mean, Spurs were sort of persistent. They decided to replace it with him with Demiral from Juventus. But then again, I'm really happy with this signing for one, because I think this is the first time in a very, very long time. Ndombele, keeping Ndombele's signing aside, apart from that, in the history of Spurs, it's the first time that we wanted a player who was the first choice, and we actually went on to sign him.
Mm.
This was never the case. We wanted Dybala, we went for Lo Celso. I mean, it's been that way forever.
Yeah.
So and yeah, he's promising, and I love the way he tackles. I mean, I think I'm really looking forward to see it. Uh, and yeah, he's going to be an upgrade, definite upgrade on Sanchez and Dyer for sure. And I expect him to play on the right side of the centre back.
Mm.
But however, just Romero is not enough. I'll tell you why. Uh, he's not someone who's great on the ball, okay, and he's a right-sided centre back. We still need a
Mm.
centre back who can both play with a, who's got a stronger left foot and can play on the ball, so that he can the left centre back can sort of go forward, whereas Romero can sort of stay back and command the line. And Romero is young; he's inexperienced in Premier League. We sort of would need a leader who's got a commanding presence and who can control his defense. So there are not many choices. If I have to look at a ball playing left footed centre back, there are absolutely not many that will be of choice for Spurs. Now, Jules Koundé, again, he's good with the ball. I
Yeah.
would agree, but again, he's a right footed centre back. So it's going to be two right footed centre backs. So I think Spurs are fine. They're not really stingy on looking for a left sided, because I think Masens Lacroix from Wolfsburg, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I think he's a left footed centre back. But then again, is just one of the signings that, I mean, one of the players that we've been in talks with. But it's going to be interesting who Spurs sign, because I think Sevilla are really, really, really interested in Sanchez. I think the reason why the deal is being held up for Koundé to Chelsea is
Mm.
because Chelsea want to give in Kurt Zuma, but then uh,
Yeah.
Sevilla are looking at Sanchez, so they want a cash deal so that they can actually prime Sanchez. So whatever
Mm.
it is, it's going to be an interesting next couple of weeks. If
Right.
Sanchez does leave, then yeah, will be another centre back will be coming in, and with Eric Dyer, Joe Rodon, I think will be covered for the cup games, and Joe Rodon is capable of pitching in Premier League as well.
Right.
So that would also mean, I think we also have Ben Davies, who can play as a left-sided centre back if required,
Mm-hmm.
with Region being the first choice left back, and also Ryan Sessegnon, who's back from loan from Hoffenheim, so he's also available in that position. So
Yeah.
um, that would that would keep us in a good position to have two strong centre backs. But again, my personal preference would be Sven Botman to come in,
Mm.
if at all we really don't sign Kunde, which really looks very unlikely at this moment.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, so there's Botman, Demiral, since he's not a target anymore, but Lacroix, and yeah, I think these two are the names that are popping at this moment. But let's see how it goes.
Mm.
I think that will be a good place to start once our defense is sorted. I think that was the issue last time around with two
Right.
pretty good solid centre backs. I think we'll be in for a good treat.
For sure. But yeah, so you've got all these signings coming in. You've linked two different players obviously in the market. You have a couple of potential outgoings as well. How do you think Nuno will set up? Because at Wolves he kind of preferred a back three formation.
Hmm.
So do you think he'll still continue with that at Spurs, or if not, do you actually see him going to a back four? Because Wolves kind of they tend to struggle when they played back in a back four under Nuno. So
Yeah,
how do you think they'll set up at Spurs?
still expect him to go with the back four, and I'll tell you why. The kind of players that he's had at Wolves is sort of completely
Hmm.
different set of players. Okay,
Yeah.
uh, so I would say that he's got similar players in Reguilon and Doherty, probably even Aurier. And
Hmm.
if at all we do bring in Takahiro Tomiyasu,
Hmm.
who's apparently really close as a right back, He's also someone who's really playing, who's got potential to play with the ball really well, and he can. Although his crossing is sort of a weakness from
Right.
what I've seen, but then he's got good ball playing ability, and Sergio Reguilon is similar. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for a back three. But then again, then comes the question: who's going to be on the back three? Would you risk playing Eric Dyer, or would you probably put the risk at, I mean, playing, taking off another creative player in the midfield and sort of, because see, I really don't know if you go in for a back three, then um, I wouldn't see Højbjerg's role will be as effective as it is right now. Again, just something personal from my end, but um, sticking with the back four, and I actually would see there's apparently a talk that Nuno actually wants to play with two strikers up front, Kane along with someone else. That someone else could be Lautaro or Vlahovic from Fiorentina.
Right.
So apparently we're in for a striker, and I don't know. I really don't know where this is coming from, but apparently Spurs have enough money uh, to sign players, irrespective of Kane leaving or not. So I think that's bullshit. They're just trying to sort of bring the players in before they ship off Kane. Very honestly,
Right.
after suffering such a huge financial loss and with a huge debt on our hand, and with absolutely no stadium right sponsor at this moment, and our owners are absolutely not willing to uh, put in money, I really do not see any other source of income. So it appears to me that they are going to look to replace Harry Kane. So if that happens, if we have one striker up front, then it makes sense for Nuno to play 4-3-3 with Son on the left. Lucas Moura probably starts for me given his preseason form, and Vlahovic probably up front, and behind him would be the combination of Oliver Skip, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, and Lo Celso. Now,
Right.
obviously, either so do we have? I would actually would like to see Lo Celso play up front in the role that Dele Alli was playing sort of in the last season, rather than Ndombele.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Ndombele is sold. We'll come to that in a bit, but then I would actually want to see a pivot of Højbjerg and Skip, with Lo Celso playing a little up front, and Brian Hill coming in probably on a right wing or in the mid. He can play as a number 10 as well, so probably give him some games to see how he nurtures and if he can replace one of the starting 11 players. But then, yeah, with the current setup, I really don't know. Apparently, we're in the market for another attacking midfielder, Hussein Awa probably, but really don't know now. So it all depends on what happens with Ndombele,
Right.
and he hasn't been playing. He hasn't played for the France squad in the Euros. He wasn't in the squad even. Uh, he reported on back to duty on the first day of preseason, and he hasn't even played a single minute. He wasn't even on the bench. So from what I see, it's got to do with his fitness again. Mauricio Pochettino complained about him. Mourinho was critical of his fitness. I think Nuno's Ryan Mason didn't even start him in any of the games, and now it's Nuno. So if it's 4 in a row, then I think it's got to be something wrong with the player. There are reports that he wants to leave. Uh, I think the reason that was given was absolutely silly and shouldn't be entertained at a professional level. So with Aurier and Sissoko expected to leave the club, he feels he doesn't have some sort of companionship within the team. With his French mates leaving, I really do not see that as an issue. But then again, I think I've always told you that despite his magical talent, he's got an attitude that can take his whole career downwards. So if Spurs do get a good deal, probably 80% of what they have paid, I think it's time to cash in and bring in. I think it's too late. I mean, if I was in Levy's shoes, I would have shipped him and probably gotten Marcel Sabitzer for 15 million euros. I mean, it's pathetic to see not many clubs who are interested, and now Bayern just go in for him because Nagelsmann is at the helm. So
Yeah.
that's one player I wish we bought in, because he would have been a natural starter, and him and Højbjerg would have been a dream, really. But then, yeah, it's going to be an interesting end to the transfer window because a lot of French players are expected to leave with Sissoko, Aurier, Sanchez, even Harry Winks probably, you know, available to be shipped off. So, yeah, let's see. And I am also interested to see what Steven Bergwijn can do this season on the right wing.
Right.
Spurs, Ajax made a bid, but Spurs rejected it.
Mm.
So if you don't reject a bid if you don't think a player is going to probably come good this season. So yeah, one full good preseason under Nuno, and let's hope that he finds his form in front of the goal.
Yeah. I think that's a very detailed assessment, Karthik. Thanks for that. So, based on the activity that you've done in the window so far, and with Nuno at the helm, given the shape of your squad right here, right now,
Mhm.
what would be a realistic expectation from Spurs from you? As in, where do you expect them to finish? Obviously, you are in the UEFA Europa Conference League, so that is something that would be of at the back of your mind. That would be a potential avenue to win a trophy again. So, what would be the expectations from you for Spurs?
First of all, on a personal note, I really I don't know what's more embarrassing: Spurs playing in the Conference League or Arsenal not playing in it. So
Yeah.
it's really hard to distinguish that. And so realistically, with the current squad as is, I would expect a top six finish, preferably fifth, um, with Kane staying. That is. Now, if Kane leaves, and if we do actually manage to bring in the targets that we are currently linked with, okay,
Hmm.
I am going to go off the limb and say we might actually challenge for top four, and I'm not kidding. Okay,
Mhm.
I honestly feel that if at all we do sell Kane and sort of invest that money wisely, from what I've seen, the targets look good. At least the names look good. Now, obviously, it's going to take time for Nuno to set them up, get them going, and then ensure that they're playing good football. But then I wouldn't rule out a top four if we actually go on to sign some really good targets and then make it. So I'm optimistic in that sense. But then again, nonetheless, irrespective of what it is, top six should be uh, an absolute necessity.
Right.
Uh, Conference League again, I'm really not. See, I would actually prefer if we do not play our main starting 11 players. I would rather see the
Hmm.
academy kids or probably the second choice players in every role sort of start the matches because we shouldn't we shouldn't take any risk of getting the main players, star players injured in one of those away games or home games. So it's something that I'm okay not to win because it's not the most glamorous of trophies. But then again, I think we should be able to make it to quarters or at least for the knockoffs by playing a B-string team. Looking at the other teams in the competition. So again, I'm not really hopeful of a title this season unless something happens miraculously. I really don't see us winning the trophy this year as well.
But an alternate way to look at it is, considering the other teams in the competition, of course. Um, I think it makes sense for Spurs to kind of go all out in Conference League because there are two things to this, and this is again just my thoughts on it. That you kind of end your trophy drought. So any trophy basically will do at this stage, right? So because one of the things I remember from the first era of Mourinho at Chelsea, right? So he said that every trophy kind of gives you that winning feeling, that instills that mentality to go and win a competition. So you not only win a trophy, but also it helps you get automatically qualify for the Europa League. So you don't have to really depend on a top six finish, so to speak. So I would personally, if I was a Spurs fan, I would kind of want to do that, even if it comes at the expense of, say, an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup place, which is okay, which is fair, I guess. But yeah, then it alternatively, like you said, at the end of the day, the target is to get into the Champions League and not the Europa League. So if you at all you are in a great position for a top four finish, it kind of makes sense to also prioritize that over the competition. But yeah, I think that's a good discussion. I think that's a good expectation as well from your end. And it completely makes sense because Spurs do have the opportunity to build a very good and competitive squad. Should Kane depart for the money that Levy is asking for,
Mhm.
and which is a fair amount as well, I think, in my view.
Yeah.
Supreet, would you have any questions
Let's
for? Yeah, sorry, you were saying something, Karthik.
No, let's just hope that Kane stays. I mean, I with all the let's not get into what happened because that's again going to take a long time. But I think if Kane does stay and Spurs stating that they still have money to spend, irrespective of Kane leaving, that would actually make us top for challenges for sure. So yeah, that would be the hope from my end.
Right. Supreet, would you have any questions for your noisy neighbors?
Nothing in particular, but I think the only question is: do you think Tottenham will finish above Arsenal again this season, or do you think Arsenal can finally break the Saint
Not
whatever?
happening, man. Not happening.
So what's your prediction?
So I think Arsenal will finish out of top six.
Hmm.
Spurs in top six.
Hmm.
Leicester fifth, probably. Spurs sixth. Aston Villa seventh, and Arsenal eighth.
Okay.
That's quite a claim. Let's see how it pans out. We'll quickly move on to the final top six London team, Chelsea. We'll make it very quick on the European champions, of course. Let me start with Supreet first. Supreet, lack of transfer activity, of course, we haven't bought anyone yet. There have been a flurry of outgoings. We've gathered some important cash with the sale of Tomori, Gehi, and some of the other French players, Moses, and there has been rumors of obviously Tammy Abraham moving on, possibly to Arsenal. So, in terms of activity, there's not much to talk about, as the incomings are yet to happen. But what would you think? Where would Chelsea stand from, let's say, tactically? Would I think Thomas Tuchel would still continue with the back three, or we'll try to change things with more reinforcements coming along the way? What are your thoughts? How do you see Chelsea faring in the Premier League this season, considering they are obviously champions of Europe? Expectations would I mean, understandably high. But what are your thoughts? How will they fare?
Honestly, very well. I think they'll finish in the top two for sure. I think it's going to be a close. I would say top three, given United have also signed, Varane and Sancho.
Mhm.
But I have a feeling Chelsea have a solid chance at winning the league. Uh, Tuchel has shown, tactical nous, and I think Chelsea have a solid enough squad, especially with Lukaku now.
Yeah.
Giroud's obviously gone, so there's maybe not a super sub, but I think Chelsea have enough firepower to win the league. Somehow I have a feeling that it's going to be um, a very close battle with City for the title this season, according to me. Uh, Chelsea have a solid goalkeeper. They have a very good defense. I think the only worry could be if someone like a Kante gets injured, I'm not sure if they
Yeah.
have enough in central midfield to you know especially in the big games. But
Right.
apart from that, I don't see too many weaknesses within the Chelsea squad. I think they'll finish in the top three for sure, and probably give City or United a very close run for the title.
Right. And Karthik, what are your thoughts on how do you think? I know you would be probably biting your biting your tongue when you say this. Where do you think Chelsea will end up finishing, and what do you expect of them realistically as your rivals? Where do you think? How do you think they'll fare this season?
I bloody hate it, man. I was depressed when I got to know that Lukaku is a done deal, and when you guys snatched Kunde as well. So I really don't know. I mean that blocks Lautaro's move as well now. Now that you're signing Lukaku, so double whammy there. But last time around we've said that the only area that needs improvement is the fact that, I mean, it is already covered, but it's just that Werner not firing up is not helping the team.
Yeah.
That's addressed now, and I last I still remember a conversation last time around. A top 400 trophy was the norm,
Yeah.
like you rightly said, and then it happened. It sort of happened. I mean, what? There's nothing better than a Champions League trophy, but I think this time around it will be interesting to see how convincingly Chelsea will do it, because they're expected to do it. Again, I'm not saying that the title favorites. I would still put City as the favorites, but then
Right.
it's going, as Supreet has mentioned, as I already mentioned, it's going to be pretty close, and it's going to be an interesting battle between City and Chelsea. However, um, Champions League might not be that easy. It's going to be interesting to see how Chelsea fare in the Champions League this season, given
Mm,
that City are obviously strong, but then you'll have the likes of PSG gunning for it.
definitely.
So it's going to be interesting on the European front. But then again,
Yeah.
I still expect Chelsea to finish in top two and pick up another cup.
Yeah, I think that's that's pretty much the hope, really, because like you both correctly mentioned, Lukaku has massively improved since his Manchester United days. I think a lot of people are wary of that, and a lot of people are realizing that he was the driving force behind Inter winning the league, of course, and uh, he was Belgium's standout player in the Euros as well. I think De Bruyne had a couple of good games, but there's no denying that Lukaku was their best player in the campaign. So I think that is something that will be a massive boost. And I think even when you analyze Inter's performances last season, so Lukaku pairing with Lautaro, I think a lot of people are also sleeping on Werner because he has his finishing moves, but his movement of the ball, his ability to drag players out of position, I think it's underrated. The a lot of dirty work he does up front. So I think he can form a very good partnership with Lukaku if Tuchel decides to play two at the two up top,
Right.
and obviously given the quality in depth with the likes of Ziyech, Pulisic, Havertz, Mount. The attack is stacked. I think as I think Supreet correctly pointed out, the midfield looks a little light. We are overly reliant on Conte, so it becomes very important to strengthen that particular area of the pitch, which concerns me the most because we've been well. Lukaku is almost a done deal, and Kunde is the next priority. So I think a lack of a lack of rumor around signing a midfielder, that is sort of a concern to me because we already let Billy Gilmore go on loan. So that's one of the areas of concern. But yeah, like you both mentioned, I'm in complete alignment with you. I think City are still the favorites. Um, I disagree with what Sushant had said earlier. I think United are still dark horses for the title because they are very good away from home. They didn't lose a single game last time round. So all they need to basically do is work on their home form, and they can be a real contender. So I think Chelsea have their work cut out, but naturally the expectations will be sky high after last season's heroics.
So Shant was just trying not to jinx it. That's all. Deep down,
As we
he
all
knows
do.
it's
I
yeah.
don't blame him. As we all do.
But then you know what? Chelsea probably has the most settled squad going into the season compared to every other team. I think they'll be much more stable. I think they'll have a clear idea on what to do on the pitch. Tuchel having a good understanding of his team now and how they function. So I
Yeah.
think the initial period, probably the first run of 6 to 7 games, if Chelsea manage to win those and take full points from them, it's going to set them up really well.
Yeah, I honestly don't think that will happen because our run-in is quite nightmarish. If you see, we are playing Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs, and City in our first 6 to 7 games. So that's a horrendous start to the season. But yeah, like you said, if we come out of it relatively unscathed, I think it does set us up for a very good season in the league at least. Let's see how it all goes. Um, I think yeah, that's we're all in alignment when it comes to Chelsea. We'll probably not spend much time here. We'll quickly finish with Liverpool. Of course, we cannot leave them out. But yeah, there has been a clear lack of activity from the previous Premier League champions. They signed Ibrahima Konate fairly early in the transfer window, which is again a very good piece of business considering centre back was a clear priority area for them last season, having lost out on Van Dijk and Gomez to injuries. Karthik, how do you think they will fare this season? Obviously, they've lost Wijnaldum, so they look a little light in midfield to me,
Yep.
but they still have a very, very potent attack and a very solid defense. So, do you think? I mean, they can be realistically can they realistically challenge for the title? How do you think they'll fare? And what about the? Let's start with the transfer activity first. How do you think? Have they got it spot on, or have they kind of uh, not bought well?
Like you already mentioned, Wijnaldum is going to be a huge loss for them,
Yeah.
and he's very underrated. They probably do not a lot of people notice what he can bring to the squad. And fair play to PSG for signing him, I guess, on a free. But um, so what my personal opinion about the Liverpool squad is that they needed they probably needed to refresh the squad
Mm.
last season. Okay, it's still not too late. I would agree. Probably they're planning it for the next season. We do not know. But then an out and out striker was required. They had to replace Firmino. Um
Mm.
Now I'm really not sure how much they will have to end up spending in order to replace Salah, because Salah was good. He came in good at in the second half of the season last time around, and he was uh,
Mm.
pretty deadly. Comparatively, I think Mane had an underwhelming season. Obviously, I mean
Right. Yeah.
it's tough to beat what is done in 2019-20.
Hmm.
That was peaks, and it's going to be very 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 important on whether he'll be able to find form or not, because I think in terms of performances, Firmino has always been the same. Uh, Basically, what he offers is very limited, but then if it clicks for the squad. If it doesn't, then they'll struggle
Yeah.
and they'll be over reliant on Mane and Salah. So uh, I would like to see more of Jota this season. Now, again, I think Jota's best position again is on the wing. Now, it's really impossible. It's nearly impossible to replace. You can't leave either of Salah or Mane out. So um, I'm not too sure if Mane would work if he plays through the middle, and
Hmm.
probably Jota and Salah on the wings. But it's
Right.
really going to be interesting in how in seeing how Klopp sets it up basically. But then again, as you said, they're pretty light in the midfield. Uh,
Hmm.
I think every Liverpool fan is hoping that Thiago Alcantara is going to sort of come up, find his form, and then start regular games.
Yeah.
That
Uh,
said, I have a question. I think KV. So, I mean, why do you think Liverpool haven't, strengthened, given where they finished last season? And you did mention a few names and how Liverpool can work around those options, but they've clearly not strengthened. Is it I mean, is it something to do with finances? Is it something to do with Klopp's conviction in the current team? Because the Premier League's moved on from when they won the title.
mhm,
Just maybe this is a question to everyone. Just
yeah.
wondering why Liverpool really haven't. I've not heard any rumors either on in the transfer market, right? Why have they been so quiet?
So I definitely don't think it's the money, for sure, because I think they're well placed in terms of that. Uh, I'm not too sure. Yeah, I think they had Sol Niguez as one of the target prospects. I'm not too
Mm.
sure if Atletico want to sell him or if they're looking out for a big move. But then, yeah, I mean, defense they're pretty much sorted again. A combination of Konate and Van Dijk is going to be unplayable, and I think yeah, it's still not. It's that's what I'm saying. It's not too late. There's still time. They might actually go and sign a good midfielder. And I was pretty sure that United were going in for Kamavinga, and there's absolutely no way that PSG are going to go and sign him now. I think PSG are done in this market. So if he's still up for grabs, I really don't understand why Liverpool don't go after him. He's going to be a perfect signing.
True. Yeah. But yeah, I think you're right. They're very light in midfield. Uh, you know, just an injury away from having to again rely on centre backs or central midfielders going back into defense. So I'm just wondering how whether they'll be able to sustain a title challenge this season.
I think, in fact, sorry, I'll just intervene here. I think, in fact, I disagree with Karthik. I think Liverpool have money problems because from what I've been, reading the news and stuff and interacting with a few of the fans on Twitter, I think the general stance from Liverpool is they want to move on the likes of Origi and Shaqiri before they kind of strengthen in those areas. So they are looking at, like Karthik said, Saul was touted as one of the potential targets, but they do rely on sales before they buy this season. So what I'm hearing is basically they have money issues. Well, otherwise, it doesn't make sense to see the other teams, your direct rivals, kind of buy their way into strengthen their teams.
Or it
But
could be the fact that Klopp believes, man. I think they've made significant investment even in the midfield. Okay, it's not that they do not have players. It's just that they have players who are not clicking at this moment. So maybe what I'm understanding is that if the likes of Fabinho and Thiago, if they start to gel in, they're both
mm,
world class players. You cannot deny that. And I I mean, Klopp has a belief that these guys will come good, and that will suffice them. Because again, see, in order to replace someone at that level, you will need a world class player. All right. So
yeah.
depending on who's in the market, I think yeah, probably it's not really easy for teams like these to replace their existing stars. So especially for Liverpool, I think that's the issue with trying to replace the squad, especially with the front three as well. So
Hmm.
it's really not easy to find players in this market without an exorbitant price to sort of bring and replace. So it's tricky for Liverpool in that sense.
Yeah.
But I still feel
So,
they've got a good enough squad, especially in the midfield
hmm.
as well. If they do find form, I think yeah. But again, Liverpool are not going to be as deadly as they were a year back or a year or two
Right.
back.
What do you guys think? Where do you see them finishing? Do you think they'll win any trophies this season? Do you think they'll finish in top four or outside?
I think they'll definitely finish in the top four, but I'm not sure if they'll go too far in the cup competitions.
Yep, spot on. Likewise.
Right. Right. Thank you so much, Supreet and Karthik. I think that concludes our season preview for the Big Six. We'll just wrap this discussion up by going through, a quick prediction from you guys on the top four. Who do you think will get relegated, and who do you think will win the European competitions? Supreet, we'll start with you. Your predictions for the top four,
Top
in
four,
no particular order, of course.
top four is going to be Chelsea, City, United, and Liverpool. Um, Arsenal, Arsenal, I think finished somewhere in the top eight. I think I'm being a bit negative here, but I think they'll finish seventh possibly.
Mhm.
Relegation, I think it's going to be Burnley, Norwich, and I hope Tottenham. I'm just kidding. I think it's going to be Watford, Norwich, and Burnley.
Right. And how about who do you think will win the Champions League
I think it's going to be between PSG, City, and Bayern.
and Europa League?
I don't care.
That's fair.
Let's talk about the whole
Conference
competition,
League.
the competition that matters. All right.
I, I don't care about that either, but I think Tottenham are hot favorites for it.
Don't forget there is Mourinho.
It would be fun to see Mourinho win the final against Tottenham and then run across the pitch and celebrate.
Knowing Mourinho, you would expect him to do just that if that happens. But yeah, thanks for that, Supreet. Karthik, over to you. What are your top four predictions?
City, Chelsea, United, Liverpool
Mhm.
is my top four predictions, and um
Relegation,
I think Brentford will come up short. Uh, so will
hmm,
Watford.
right?
I don't know. I see outside chance for Norwich to qualify, and yeah, Brighton to go down this time.
I think that's a decent shout. Yeah, Brighton do look light. Obviously, the XG Kings. But, so unless they find their shooting boots, they are actually a realistic candidate to go down. So that's a fair shout. How about the Champions League? Who do you think that where the
PSG,
big
Mauricio
yeah,
Pochettino to finally lift the trophy of his dreams with
yeah.
Messi, Mbappe, and Neymar. Oh my
But do
God.
you think Pochettino should quit football if they don't?
I think, yeah, if he doesn't, I think they'll have to make him a honorary manager at Tottenham Hotspur in line
He
with their
could he could
DNA.
either quit football, or even worse, he could come back to Tottenham.
That's what I'm saying. He should be given the
That's
honorary chairman or honorary president manager for life. Chuck Paratici, Chuck everyone, make him the this thing. I think it's gonna fit in
mascot,
well with the DNA.
club mascot.
Mascot is too much, but then yeah, a club. I mean, manager, honorary manager for life. Let him take care of all the teams together, under 18s, under 23s. Just give him the whole club if he can't do that.
Right. And how about Europa League? Who do you think is winning that?
Who's there in Europa League by the way? I once followed them on Twitter.
The problem is this time no decent English team is also there. I mean, I wouldn't to be respectful
Leicester
to
are
the
there,
teams.
right?
I think there are no big English teams.
Mhm.
Yeah, Leicester and West Ham. So you can't call them out and out favorites. So it's kind of a tricky Europa League setting this time. Obviously, you have the Champions League teams that will drop down to
Exactly.
Europa
That
League. So
it
you
makes
can't
more sense for
really
them to sort of lift the
yeah.
trophy.
Yes, I do think that that will be either one of them. But you do have some decent teams like Leverkusen, Napoli, Leicester, of course, Lyon, Marseille. So you can't really say anything about that. But do you expect Spurs to win the Conference League, Karthik?
They should liquidate the club if they can't win this, man. Honestly, I'm
Yeah, I think
I'll be done with this club. I'll probably go for a tattoo removal if that happens. If they just get knocked out by some random team.
I think it's a big season in Europe for both Pochettino and Spurs because there's just too much pressure on them to win it. They have to win it.
Yeah,
They have a setting, they have an environment where they cannot lose. So it's
right.
completely up to them to lose. That's interesting. I'll just pitch in with my predictions before we close the session. Top four, I think I'm in complete agreement with both of you. I think City, Chelsea, Liverpool, United should finish in the top four given the resources they have at their hand. Relegation, it's going to be an interesting one. I think Norwich will go down because they've lost obviously one of their best players in Buendia, so that is sure to bite them in the behind. So that's one. I think Brentford also may go down, although they are quite famous for their whole analytical modeling and stuff. But I think they'll still fall short of the Premier League's demands. And the third one would be Burnley because they tailed off massively at the end of last season. So I think you could see them going down as well. Champions League, definitely PSG, hands down my favorites to win it. Like I said, that they have an environment they can't lose. They have a super team. They have a good coach. So there's no excuses for them this season. They have to win it. It's just the way it is. They have to win it. Europa League, obviously, we can't say which teams will fall down from the Champions League, so it's quite tricky. But yeah, Conference League, I do expect Spurs to win because there are no quality teams, or at least no teams of same quality from Europa League that may drop down to Conference League. Not sure if they have that model in the first place, but yeah, I think Spurs have to win it. Again, no excuses there.
I have a question. Who do you think is going to be the dark horse in this Premier League season. Someone that's going to, outweigh all expectations and challenge, or maybe even finish in a very good position.
Tottenham Hotspur.
I think I agree because I mean obviously my answer is not Tottenham, but I can see where Karthik is coming from because Nuno is a good coach. I think last season it all went south, but you have to consider the fact that Nuno was missing their key best player in Raul Jimenez, and I think Pedro Neto was also missing for some part of the season. So given all of that, I think a 12th place finish is not the worst thing in the world. So I think he's a good coach. And obviously, if they sign all of their first choice targets, I think they are a force to be reckoned with. I don't see any reason why they can't make an upset and reach the top four. But my shout for the dark horses would be it's not really dark horses. Again, I'll circle back to the same thing. I think Manchester United are being slept on. I think Ole has to get it right. I think he will get it right. Although I have a feeling it will go either spectacularly right or spectacularly wrong for him. But I think Ole is being or United are being slept on. I think they'll be a real, they'll be in the mix for the title. That's how I would see it.
I have a
What
feeling
I,
one of
yeah,
either Leeds or Aston Villa are going to have a big season. But it could, again, like I said, it could go the other way as well. I mean, with
yeah.
all the hype that's around them, I have a feeling that Leicester could have a solid season and maybe even push their way into the top four again. That would be a very
Definitely.
successful season for them.
Definitely, I think they have been knocking on the door for two last two seasons, and obviously they've won a trophy and they've backed it up by beating City in the Community Shield. So there's no reason why they can't do that. Anyway, thank you so much, Supreet, Karthik, and Sushant. It was a brilliant discussion. We have a huge season up ahead of us. I think we're all eagerly waiting for that. Let's see how it goes. Thank you so much once again, guys. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. And best of luck for the upcoming season for your respective teams.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
man. You too. Cheers.